Hi, my fellow seekers of the truth. Today I'm gonna tell you why, despite being very influential and popular movement in the 20th century, postmodernism might be one of the key factors in many modern problems, such as climate change, the rise of ultra-right, and even screen addiction. So to start off with the basics, what is postmodernism? The exact answer might differ from source to source, but in a nutshell it's a literary, philosophical, and political movement that constitutes non-existence of real truth, what I like to call absolute relativity. Nothing is certain in postmodernistic terms. Morals are relative, knowledge is conditional, and even the reality is perceived as our idea of the world, rather than the world itself. There are quite a few noteworthy concepts in postmodernism. For example, a scriptor, a new interpretation of the authorship that denies traditional authority of the writer over his work. Another one is simulacrum, which is a copy without original, like an image from Instagram that was photoshopped so heavily it does not represent an actual person anymore. The methods of postmodernism are very diverse. Humor and irony play an important part. They are used in opposition to modernistic seriousness, and also as a way of escapism from stressful life overloaded with responsibility. Another famous method of postmodernism is deconstruction. It is exploration of the boundaries of concepts done by using them in unintended ways. An example I genuinely enjoy is applying Riemann zeta function to z's with real part less than 1. By some mathematical magic I'm not going to dive into, we get an astounding result. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 and so on equals minus 112. Of course, it's untrue, but this result shows a deeper connection between the series of natural numbers and this puzzling minus 112, which unfortunately is out of scope of this video. To sum up everything that was said above, postmodernism wonders about nature of the very basic concepts upon which we usually build our worldview, such as the truth, the reality, the consciousness. And although skepticism towards previously existing narrative is a great trait everyone should try to acquire, postmodernistic spirit of destruction goes much beyond it. So now let's dive into the problems of postmodernism. First of all, there is a tendency to escapism as a way of solving problems. Since the mid-20th century, integration of politics in day-to-day life, polarization of world powers, and introduction of weapons of mass destruction made the environment around us much more aggressive and invasive. Only the most stupid people, who cannot challenge their own beliefs or understand the stakes, feel comfortable in modern political environment. That leads to intellectuals all around the world trying to evade from any politics at all, which, in turn, makes an environment even more unbearable for any thinking person. This creates a vicious cycle, resulting in prevalence of uneducated, uninformed, and irresponsible people in modern political discourse. It is likely that surge in popularity of manosphere, neo-Nazis, and other so-called alt-right is linked to more competent and serious people leaving discourse in order not to be anxious or to feel intruded. And not only does postmodernism help those intellectuals to escape from reality, it also actively encourages them to do so by stating the subjective nature of everything and inability to make the world objectively better, thus making running away from the problem the only viable solution. The second major problem with postmodernism is the fact that it divides people. Whereas before we could just stick to simple empathy, now we are lost, since the previously obvious natural assumption that all people's minds work essentially the same, in postmodernism becomes wildly unacceptable. And how can you experience empathy towards an unknown creature? That eventually leads to dehumanization and prevents us from trying to understand what others feel and what is the reasoning behind their thoughts. The last problem I want to talk about is the ultimate uncertainty that a person experiences in a world dominated by postmodernism. It's not a coincidence that for the most part of human history, people's minds were controlled either by religion or by ideology. That is so because we, as human beings, seek certain and simple things and don't like unknown or something extremely complicated. It's a common knowledge that while plunging into the routine is not great, we need some stable ground to stand on in order to feel psychologically safe and comfortable. Postmodernism pulls the rug from under our feet, because it denies the very existence of such ground, leaving people wandering in the shadows. And this wandering in the shadows leaves three ways to find your ground. First, you can turn to people who provide you with an accessible and simple truth. Unfortunately, usually this means extreme ideologies, especially alt-right, which has an additional bonus of consoling young men who have lost their traditional patriarchal power just in a few decades and therefore still feel like they should own it. The second option is escapism. And although painted in vibrant intellectual colors, escapism nowadays is, for the most part, not art, but TikTok, Instagram, and other social media trying to hook you with an easy access to immediate reward, opposing to traditional culture that rewards you either after some effort or over a stretched period of time. Another unfortunately common form of escapism is cynicism. There is nothing easier in the modern world than being a cynic who denies everything. But this attitude is barren. It does not produce anything and provides no benefits in the long run. Telling ourselves that the world is doomed and we cannot change anything because people in general are cruel and dumb is not a way to live a happy life. The third option is the only one that requires effort. It is learning about the world around us, how it works, and essentially what is truth. So yes, I encourage you to study the science, and especially subjects that are very concise and are not plagued with politics, such as biology, linguistics, and especially physics, because it's the most precise science we have, and it can teach anyone a lot about how knowledge actually works. I want to be very clear, I do not hate postmodernism at all. It's a cool philosophy that can teach us a lot, and I genuinely enjoy postmodernistic literature. However, spread of postmodernism was a catastrophe, a cultural equivalent of a meteor strike. It left people without basic truths to turn to, and with no way of digesting the world around them, which, as you can expect, led to growing discontent and unhappiness, because no one likes to be surrounded by the unknown. It's time for us to subvert the narrative, to get closer to universal truth, and to find true ourselves.